Evening, creeps. It's your old pal, Uncle Ashes. You caught me right in the middle of a marathon. A screamathon, if you will. I was just thinking about the good old days. You know, before you could stream any nightmare you wanted directly to your pocket, we had to work for our scares. We had to go to a little place called the video store. Remember those? Thousands of plastic boxes, the smell of stale popcorn, and the constant threat of late fees. Talk about a real horror show. Tonight's feature is a real slice of life. We're following a young man named Toby who forgot the golden rule of cinema. Some things are better left on the cutting room floor. Let's roll the tape. Hope it doesn't get tangled. Toby Miller was a celluloid junkie, the kind of guy who thought digital was a four-letter word. To him, the ritual was sacred. It was October 1994, and the Oak Haven air was thick with the scent of damp leaves and the low-frequency hum of a town that went to sleep way too early. He pushed through the heavy glass doors of Starlight Video at 11:45 p.m. Ding! The metallic chime echoed through the aisles like a coin dropped in a hollow skull. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered with a rhythmic, sickly headache pulse. The carpet was that specific shade of industrial blue, worn down into gray paths where thousands of feet had marched in search of a Saturday night distraction. Behind the counter sat Old Man Miller. He didn't look up from the small black and white portable TV he was watching. He just sat there, skin like parchment, his Starlight vest hanging off his skeletal frame. Toby headed straight for the back, past the new releases, past the tired comedies, all the way to the corner where the horror section lived. It was a wall of jagged fonts and bleeding masks. Freddy, Jason, Pinhead, they were all there, trapped in their plastic coffins. But tonight, Toby noticed the beaded curtain leading to the private room was swaying, even though there wasn't a draft in the building. It felt like the room was breathing. He pushed through the beads. The air back here was 10 degrees colder. It smelled of ozone and old magnets. There, sitting alone on a wooden shelf, was a tape without a box. It was a standard T120, black and heavy, with a strip of yellowed masking tape across the top. "Play Me" was scrawled in white grease pencil, the handwriting of someone whose hand was shaking. Toby brought it to the counter. Miller didn't scan it. He didn't check for a barcode. He just reached out a hand that felt like cold leather, tapped the counter and whispered, "Free, if it's back by dawn. If not, well, we have a very strict collection policy." Toby's apartment was a graveyard of empty soda cans and pizza boxes. He slid the tape into his top-loading VCR with a satisfying thunk-clunk. The machine whirred, a mechanical beast waking up from a long nap. He sat on the edge of his plaid sofa, the blue play icon burned into the upper corner of his vision. The screen didn't show a movie. There was no FBI warning, no trailers for upcoming blockbusters, just static. And then an image. It was grainy, high contrast, and oddly silent. Toby leaned in. He recognized that cracked sidewalk. He recognized the rust spot on the mailbox. It was a shot of his own house, filmed from the roof of the Starlight video across the street. "Very funny, Miller," he muttered, but his palms were suddenly slick with sweat. On the screen, a figure stepped into the frame. It wore a bright yellow slicker, the kind that looked neon in the low light. It didn't walk, it twitched. Every step was jerky, like it was missing frames of reality. It crossed the street, stepping over the puddles without making a splash on the screen. It walked right up to Toby's porch. Toby stared at the door on the TV. Then he slowly turned his head to look at his real front door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was perfectly synced. On the TV, the figure's hand hit the wood. In the room, the door shuddered in its frame. Toby's heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He reached for a heavy glass ashtray, his knuckles white. On the screen, the figure turned around. It didn't have eyes, kids. It didn't have a nose or a mouth. In the center of its smooth, pale face was a wide glass camera lens. And as Toby watched, he saw the lens zoom. It wasn't looking at the camera anymore. It was looking through the TV and directly at him. "Smile, Toby. You're on Candid Cadaver." Toby yanked the power cord, but the blue play icon stayed. The image changed. The camera was now low, moving through the dog door. Toby looked down. The flap was still swinging. On the TV, a hand reached from the bottom of the frame and grabbed Toby's ankle. In the real room, Toby felt a grip like cold iron lock onto his leg. He was dragged across the carpet toward the TV, which was widening its tape slot into a jagged, yawning maw of plastic and teeth. He screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the static. Whew! Toby finally got his big break. Too bad it was his neck. They found him the next morning, but the police couldn't find the tape. Just a pile of magnetic ribbon that looked suspiciously like intestines. Remember, kids, always rewind your rentals. It's just polite. Stay restless and don't let the VCR bite. I've got to go. I hear the Baron calling. Sounds like someone's in vain. Pleasant screams.